The movie begins a few months after the end of the previous film, where Yuri Boyka managed to escape from the Gorgon prison and live life according to his wishes. Boyka is now a fighter in an underground martial arts tournament in Kiev, Ukraine. Boyka looked pensive with sweat dripping down his face, indicating that he had just finished the fight and managed to defeat his opponent, as shown in a flashback. The scene then switches, and shows the atmosphere in Chornya prison, Russia, which holds mixed martial arts matches and now has an unbeaten defending champion, a big man named Koshmer. In just a short time, Koshmer was able to overthrow his opponents, and his prowess was famous outside of prison. One day, Boyka was seen visiting a church in Kiev. He apparently came there regularly, and donated some of his earnings and some scriptures to the church. Knowing that Boyka is a street fighter, the priest then advises him to find another better job and not earn money using violence. Sooner or later, the violence will actually plunge him into misery. Boyka seemed to think about the advice of the priest. But for now, he has not been able to find another job that earns him enough money to make ends meet other than being a street fighter. After that, Boyka went to the Kiev Sports Center to train, where a man named Kirill, who was his manager, came to him and told him about an important MMA fight in Budapest. But before Boyka can participate in the martial arts tournament, he must convince the talent scouts who will watch the fight in the preliminary round. Because the MMA championship was a fight he had been waiting for a long time, Boyka trained hard. In the preliminary round, he had to fight a fighter named Victor. Their fight was quite fierce, but Boyka managed to overthrow his opponent with one fatal blow, and won the talent scouts' trust to enter him into the prestigious martial arts tournament in Budapest. On the way home, Boyka sees Victor being taken to the ambulance, and learns that the man has suffered a severe concussion and is in critical condition after fighting with him. Boyka looks so guilty, and he remembers the priest's words that violence, even for good, will bring suffering to everyone. The next day, Boyka received word from Kirill that Victor had died. Boyka feels even more guilty and begins to regret his actions, and thinks about what he has been fighting for all this time by becoming a fighter. After learning that Victor has a wife named Alma who lives in Russia, Boyka is determined to meet Victor's wife and apologize. Kirill tries to remind him of the martial arts tournament in Budapest, and says that his safety will be in danger if he returns to Russia. But Boyka didn't care and then told Kirill to fake his passport and go to Russia to meet Alma. Turning to the city of Drovny in Russia, Alma is seen holding the funeral procession for her husband solemnly. After that, a mafia boss named Zurab came to her and said that Victor had a lot of debt and urged her to pay it off. Since Alma had no money, she begged Zurab to allow her to pay the debt in another way, namely to work for him until the debt was paid off, to which Zurab immediately agreed. Not long after, Boyka finally arrived in the city of Drovny and rushed to the address stated in Victor's letter, which was none other than a community center, and seen children playing soccer on the field. Boyka saw Alma talking to a little girl at the entrance, before a man finally took her away. Boyka then follows Alma, who turns out to be taken to a luxury club owned by Zurab, which turns out to be his underground fighting club, where Alma works as a waitress. There, Boyka witnesses the fight of Igor Kazmir, a very arrogant fighter who reminds him of his past. But Igor was much more arrogant, which made Boyka very sick of seeing him. Knowing that Boyka had been watching him for a long time, Alma then approached him and asked for his identity and the purpose of following her. When they were about to state the reason, suddenly Zurab's men came and chased Boyka away. Feeling disapproved, Boyka beats Zurab's men while waiting for Alma to finish work. But then, Zurab appears and chases Boyka away while warning him not to bother Alma again. Because Zurab brought more men with him, Boyka was forced to leave while Zurab asked one of his henchmen to watch Boyka. The next day, Boyka returned to Alma at the community center and told her that her husband had died due to an incident caused by him, and offered to help her pay off her late husband's debt. But Alma looked very disappointed and refused Boyka's offer, then told him to leave. Zurab, who seems annoyed that his underground fighting business is being dragged down due to the lack of reliable fighters, intends to find a great fighter to compete in his club at the fighting club. Because Boyka wants to help Alma pay off all his debts, he then deals with Zurab by becoming a fighter in his club in exchange for Alma's freedom. Zurab then agreed and put forward a condition that Boyka must win 3 fights and follow all the rules. It turns out that Zurab already knows who Yuri Boyka really is. On the other hand, Kirill contacted Boyka and suggested that he return to Ukraine as soon as possible, but Boyka asked for a week, because he had important business to attend to. When he was about to go to the training ground, Boyka was visited by Alma, who asked him to leave Russia, because she did not need his help. However, Boyka instead said that everything he did was not to help her but to save himself, who wanted to atone for his past mistakes. So Boyka doesn't care at all if Alma doesn't need his help. Arriving at the training center, Boyka couldn't even train seriously, because another fighter was bothering him.
What? This is my fucking bag.
Boyka's first fight begins. This time, he will face off against a fighter named Boris Tarsov, who he can easily defeat. While getting out of the ring, Boyka is approached by Igor, who tries to warn him very arrogantly. While in the dressing room, Boyka was visited by Alma, who gave him a drink. Knowing that Boyka was having trouble finding a place to practice, Alma invited him to the training room at the community center, which was usually used by her late husband for his training. Boyka continued to practice there in the following days, accompanied by the children, who seemed excited to see him. In the second fight, Boyka had to fight 2 fighters at once, the Ozerov brothers, who launched a barrage of attacks to overwhelm him. Boyka had suffered a minor back injury in the fight. However, when he saw Alma, his fighting spirit rose and faced the brothers again until he won. The next day, at the community center, Alma came to Boyka, who was practicing, and applied ointment to relieve the pain in his back. Boyka then asked Alma why she didn't just leave the city. Alma replied that this community center was her and Victor's dream. She also couldn't leave the children who live in this neighborhood, because children could become gangsters or get involved in drugs and possibly commit other criminal acts without this community center. The scene switches and shows Zurab, who is bribing Koichev, a high-ranking police officer, to bring Koshmer to his club, no matter what, because Koshmer is a fighter with big height, furious, and relentless. Zurab thinks Koshmer is a great fighter who will bring him a lot of advantages, and he was very sure that Yuri Boyka wouldn't be able to beat him. After that, Zurab came to Alma and found out that Alma had been helping Boyka by providing a training ground for him. Zurab then tells Alma that Boyka killed her husband in a fight in Kiev, but Alma refuses to believe it. Annoyed, Zurab pushes Alma and threatens to kill Boyka. Shortly after, Boyka got a call from Kirill who said that a bus would pick him up at 9 o'clock at night. But that night, Boyka must make his final fight and ensure Alma's freedom before returning to Ukraine. Arriving at the hotel, Alma was already waiting for Boyka in her room. She then asked Boyka to detail about the night of her husband's death. At first, Boyka was reluctant to tell the story for fear of hurting Alma. But he realized that Alma had the right to know the truth. After knowing the real incident, Alma felt very disappointed in Boyka and cried as she walked away. In the third match, Boyka will face Igor Kazmir, the arrogant fighter whose ability is not comparable to his big mouth.
Remember what I told you?
Yes, you're engañado.
I'm going to fuck you.
Boyka manages to beat Igor, but he misses the bus that Kirill had promised him. When Boyka is about to leave, Zurab forces him to fight one more match to defeat Koshmar, his true champion, and Boyka reluctantly agrees for Alma's sake. Because Koshmar has a big and strong body, at first Boyka can't hurt him, and is instead attacked badly by Koshmar, leaving him badly beaten. But in the second round, Boyka started to get an opening, and his attacks were able to hit Koshmar. In that fierce and intense fight, Boyka managed to break one of Koshmar's arms and one leg, eventually kicking the big man out of the ring, knocking him unconscious. Everyone cheered for the victory of the mighty Yuri Boyka. Because all of his mainstay fighters have been defeated, an angry Zurab then takes Alma hostage, and orders all his men to kill Boyka. Boyka, who was lying helpless after being beaten badly by Zurab's henchmen, saw Alma who was crying in fear when she was carried away by the man. Boyka finally got up and put all his remaining strength into fighting Zurab's henchmen. But then, he is shot by Boyka. Despite being badly injured, Boyka catches up to Zurab and Alma. Zurab then points his gun, threatening to kill Alma if Boyka doesn't drop the gun. Boyka then dropped his gun. Seeing an opportunity, Alma bites Zurab's finger, which causes him to hurt and release him, leaving Alma free. Not wasting this opportunity, Boyka immediately lunged at Zurab, punched him in the face and strangled him to death. After that incident, Boyka, who was seriously injured and had exhausted all his strength, slumped limply in Alma's arms. He then asked Alma to forgive him for what he had done to her husband. Before Alma could answer, Koichev and his men came and immediately arrested Boyka. Six months later, Alma visits Boyka in Chornya Kolmy prison. She was seen in a white dress. Alma shows a painting of Boyka who is practicing, made by the children of the community center. Alma then tells Boyka that she finally forgave him and thanks Boyka for saving her. The film ends by showing Boyka being welcomed back as the greatest fighter in Chornya Kolmy prison, where he will continue to fight in prison to pursue the title of the most complete martial artist in the world.